Hello everybody, today is 9th of April. My name is Sahil and welcome to the newspaper analysis. Guys, first of all, let's have a look on today's GS folder. Guys, today we'll take a quote from French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. He says, "Life has no meaning a priori. It is up to you to give it a meaning, and value is nothing but the meaning that you choose." Now, friends, a priori here means that in itself life has no meaning. It is a person who cast his life in the light of ethics or in a light of an unethical behavior. There is nothing such as destiny. There is nothing such as past karma. It is a person's one's own action which gives a meaning. Further, it has been provided the values also in themselves mean nothing. It is a person who gives a meaning to the value by upholding those value into true spirit as well as in true letter. Guys, we can utilize this particular quote in GS paper number 4, Human Values, Ethics and Human Interface. Guys, that is all about today's GS folder, and now we'll be taking up the newspaper analysis. Guys, in today's newspapers, the Indian Express, Hindu, as well as others also, much of the important articles are not there. The news with respect to the political developments and COVID are only there. So, guys, if you are reading the newspaper, be very, very selective. Now, guys, taking up the first article, this article has been taken from the Business Standard newspaper and it will be important for our GS paper number 3, the economic reforms taken by the government. Now, guys, it has been seen that in 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, government came out with the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, where the self-sufficiency was to be achieved. Now, guys, into this particular thing, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology is going forward and is announcing a 1,000 crore rupee plan for the fabless startups. Now, first of all, let's understand that what are the fabless startups. So friends, a fabless company is one which designs a hardware, designs the chips and outsources for the manufacturing to a third party or to an outside vendor. Majorly they are involved into the research and development. Today if we see world's largest chip makers such as the Qualcomm, Intel, they are also working onto the fabless line. They design, they research and development, and actual manufacturing is done by the plants situated in China and Taiwan. Now, when we talk about India, guys, there are 50 to 100 startups who have a potential that they can become the fabulous companies onto a global scale and can give a tough competition to the Qualcomm and Intel. So, therefore, this 1,000 crore rupees funding will be helping them. Now, guys, the support will be given into the four areas. Number one, the seed funding will be given, the assistance will be given during their growing phase. Then the common infrastructure will be given to them, which they can access, and there will be the computing infrastructure which also be given. Now further, guys, this support to the fabless companies, it is also a part of a larger plan that the government has taken, that is to provide $5 billion funding to the entire sector of semiconductors, display fabrication, wearables such as smart watches, Internet of Things, and the fabless product companies. Now, guys, all this initiative is aimed at to help India to leapfrog into the fourth industrial revolution and the era of machine to machine communication that is coming. Moreover, because of the government's proactive actions, India has already become a major chip design center, and there are several global semiconductor and chip design players that are setting up their research and development plans into the country. Now, guys, this is a kind of a head start to these fabulous startups and other companies into this particular sector. However, the additional funding they themselves will be generating via the angel investing or by the venture capitalist or via the viable gap funding. So guys, that is all about this particular article, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Friends, this article has been taken from the Business Standard newspaper and it is talking about the economic impact of COVID-19 pandemic on India. Guys, this data you can utilize in GS paper number 3 related answers. Here it has been provided that India's debt to GDP ratio has increased substantially due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now guys, at the end of 2019, the debt to GDP ratio of India was approximately 74%, and in 2020 it has increased to nearly 90%, which shows that the impact of COVID-19 pandemic was very much severe onto the India. Further, it has been provided that this ratio will stabilize into the midterm at around 80%. Then after that, it has also been said that there will be the three countries which majorly be driving the global growth, and they are the India, China, and the USA. Now, this thing has been said by the World Bank, and it shows that the India and these countries had shows the major resilience into the times of the pandemic of COVID-19. However, there are the concerns that the inequality into the times had also increased, and this particular thing might dent the growth prospects. Now, the inequality in terms of vaccination, in terms of economic impact, etc., has been there. So guys, that is all about this particular article, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Guys, this article has been taken from the Indian Express newspaper, and it talks about the growing gender gap, and it will be important for GS paper number 1 as well as GS paper number 2. Now guys, here it has been provided that recently the World Economic Forum's annual gender gap report 2021 was released, and into it India's rank has been 140 out of 156 countries, and it is actually a decline of 28 ranks. Now it shows that India is very much gender biased. And further, into this particular report, it has been seen that the huge gap is onto the dimension of political participation. And onto the political participation, not only into the India but into the entire world, the countries had not given the favorable treatment. Here, there are certain data which has been given. Now, guys, there are 156 countries which have been taken up into the report, and into them it has been found that women hold only 26% of the parliamentary seats and just 22% of the ministerial position. And in India also the same situation is prevailing. Here, if we then in 2019 only 23.1% of the ministers they were the women, and this particular figure further declined to 9.1% in 2021. However, in terms of holding the parliamentary seats, just 14.4% of parliamentary seats are being held by the women. Further into this particular direction, there are certain other highlights also which has been provided. Here we can see that approximately 104 countries are there which still have certain laws preventing the women from certain types of jobs and employment. Moreover, 600 million women are still living into the countries where the domestic violence is not a punishable offense. Now, always whenever the women related discrimination is being talked about in terms of the solution, there have been focus on to the developmental assistance, domestic policies, etc. But guys, rarely we have talked about the broad themes, the themes such as giving the empowerment or the recognition to women into the foreign policy, economics, finance, trade, and security. Particularly, guys, if we talk about the foreign policy, it has been a foray of the male diplomats. But into the recent times, a feminist foreign policy is being talked about, which has been taken up by the Sweden in 2014. And on to the same lines, some other countries have also been moving towards the feminist foreign policy, and the examples are the Canada, France, Germany, as well as Mexico. Now, when they adopt a feminist foreign policy, it gives a gendered approach to the aspects of the policy, making the representation of a women into the other countries with which they are conducting the bilateral relations, and it basically increases the symbolic stature of the women. So, guys, it has been provided that onto such lines the countries should focus. Now, when we talk about India, now, guys, India is the non-permanent member at the United Nations Security Council. Moreover, guys, India had also been recently elected to the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women for a term of 4 years. And here, India can play a key role in increasing the gender consciousness into the foreign policy. Moreover, guys, India had earlier also done some spectacular works. For example, in 2007, India deployed the first ever female unit to the United Nations mission into the Libya, and there they supported the gender empowerment programs. Moreover, through various other platforms such as the SARC, IPSA, Indian Ocean Rim Association, as well as other multilateral fora, also the government had also always talked about the gender empowerment, gender emancipation, etc. And now further, it has been provided into the article that India needs to go beyond this particular thing and needs to declare explicitly the feminist component into the foreign policy. So, guys, this is all about the idea that has been provided into this particular article. And when talking about the gender empowerment, also talk about the gender component into the foreign policy. So, that is all. Now, we'll move to the next article. Guys, this article has been taken from the Hindu newspaper, and it talks about the renewed focus onto the environmental conservation and the focus that is being given onto the carbon neutrality. Now, guys, earlier on to the 8th of April, already we have taken up this entire article via the two of the editorials, one from the Indian Express and other from the Hindu. Now, guys, apart from that, there is no substantial substance into this article. So, if you want, you can just read it, or even you can refer to the yesterday's editorial discussion. So that is all, and now we'll move to the next article. Friends, this article has been taken from the Hindu newspaper, and here we can see that the Chief Justice of India, S.A. Bobde, has talked about some precautions that are needed to be taken up with respect to the appointment of judges into the High Court. Now, before going into this particular article, I would like to tell you some of the background. Now, guys, few days back, it was observed that there are high number of judicial vacancies into the High Courts. You can see here that there is 1080 sanctioned strength of the judges. However, there are 411 vacancies. It means that the functional strength of the High Court right now is just 669, and because of that, there are the judicial delays that are coming. Therefore, it was said that in an expedited form, the judicial vacancies are to be fulfilled, and even a recommendation was given that the ad hoc judges to the High Court can be appointed. The retired judges can be appointed as an ad hoc judge if they are willing to give their services. But guys, now in order to give a kind of a prudence to this particular recommendation, it has further been provided by the CGI that the ad hoc judges should not be appointed in place of a regular recommendation. Only it needs to be adopted as a last resort. So therefore, a kind of a clarity has been given. Moreover, it has also been said that there is needed to be a procedure which should explain that when a Chief Justice of a High Court can initiate the appointment of an ad hoc judge, what are the parameters which needed to be there. Moreover, other things are also to be kept in mind. For example, what will be the threshold of pendency for such appointment? For how long should such an ad hoc judge should continue? What should be their allowance, salaries, etc. Now, this thing was very much needed to be clarified because it has been seen that many a times the actions are not taken onto the recommendations with respect to the High Court judges, or sometimes even the recommendations are not given. So, in order to reduce that inactivity, this particular clarification was very much needed. Guys, you can utilize this particular development into your GS paper number 2 with the related to the questions of the judiciary. So that is all, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Now guys, this article has been taken from the Hindu newspaper, and it will be important for GS paper number 2, developments into the neighborhood and international relations. Now guys, here it is a brief update. Now what has been here, the United Kingdom is setting up a dedicated 43 million pound fund for the migrants that will be coming from the Hong Kong to the UK. Now guys, if we take the basic background of this particular development, then see, earlier the Hong Kong was a part of the Qing Empire, which was a dynasty into the China. Now guys, the Qing Empire transferred the Hong Kong to the British after the Opium Wars were held. See, initially the Hong Kong was given into the part to the British. However, in full, the control of the Hong Kong was given to the British for a 99-year lease, and this 99-year lease got expired in 1997. And here the Hong Kong was again transferred to the China, but a condition was laid on to the China that the China need to treat Hong Kong under the principle of one country two system. There will be the liberal freedoms that will be given to the citizens of Hong Kong, because guys, they were always nurtured under the British common law system. Liberties were there, fundamental rights were there, freedom of speech and expression was there, and in fact the people living into the Hong Kong, they connect more to the British ideas rather than to the Chinese ideas. The China agreed to this one country two system and agreed that at least till 2047 it will be followed. However guys, what happened in 2020, the China came out with the national security legislation and made the Hong Kong entirely subservient to the Chinese laws, and provided that even the arrest can be made, the freedom of speech and expression can be deted. After that, a kind of a crisis unfolded into the Hong Kong. Now guys, in response to that only, this is the UK's step. UK is saying that if you feel that you are not being treated properly into the China, you can come back to the UK, and there they will be offered a path to work, even the residency and the complete citizenship can be provided. Here up to 5 million of out of 7.4 million people can be benefited. So guys, into that particular development, this is a step taken by the UK. So guys, that is all about the today's newspaper analysis. I hope that you have understood it. Thank you so much.